Hi there, welcome to the Bitcoin Cash Wyckoff technical analysis session. So we asked the question, or we actually put into the title last week saying a dip may be near, and this week indeed a dip happened. So there were a couple of reasons to that. Most importantly is that the Bitcoin Cash price has been trading along an invisible downward channel, and its peak lower than an earlier peak. So that's the pessimistic sign that I shared multiple times already. So let's get into the chart and see what I'm talking about. So when you see this red or like pinkish box, we also see these three buying climaxes, BC, BC, BC over here. So the worrying part that I have for Bitcoin Cash is this one peak lower than the other. I was talking about this since, I don't know, 3-4 sessions ago. Since the very first session I received a request to cover Bitcoin Cash. I said this is not good for long term, because if this cycle, this distribution cycle really peaked at where it is today, it has been there for 5 consecutive weeks prior to this week's drop. This is definitely not a long-term good sign if you're trying to stay with Bitcoin Cash, because if the trend continues, this means the value of Bitcoin Cash is just going to diminish. So back to Wyckoff, let's say if this is the buying climax, and the red candle, first red candle over here was the automatic reaction. What we have seen over the past few weeks was a second test. We don't know whether an upthrust or a subsequent second test would happen, but let's keep it there for now, while the second test has already been confirmed. And now that it's at a sign of weakness stage, assuming that's the buying climax, that's the case. I have other hypotheses, but not to complicate things further right now. If it really happens that the price continues to trade sideways and eventually goes upward, I'll share the other hypothesis I have that I already shared in some other altcoins. Sometimes there can be two scenarios that may be in play, but only one will eventually hold true. Price end of bull run in a good value or the better valued tokens. I usually don't guess the top. What I do is, if I enter an order, I'll keep pushing my stop loss up until the point that the price drop and how do I say that, caused me to realize my profit. Let's put it that way. That's how I do it. Because guessing the top, people can just go crazier than normal. Like if you look at CRO just the past 2 days, just that news, it may be a very good opportunity for the whales to offload all their stock to people FOMOing in. It doesn't represent long-term values, and if I were to predict the top, there's no way I can predict these outliers events. So whoever is going to give you a top, either they're lucky that they guessed that right, otherwise they will hit a scenario like that sooner or later, that the prediction won't be correct anymore. And there are many factors that we don't know, that we don't have access to. I'm not any insider or like people with power that get to know news earlier than other people. So there's no way I can predict where the price will end up peaked. But as of now, looking at where it is just not optimistic that for the long-term value of Bitcoin Cash, like I mentioned in the very beginning. So back to your question about whether it's a good value, if the trend continues, it is not. Whether there are other better value tokens, yeah, definitely. So there are many other channels that talks about the prospects of projects. Most importantly is to look at whether the community is healthy, both the supporting community, the developers community, investors, business partnerships, and then next is the technical feasibility, because those people, especially business partnerships and investors, would have vetted the whether the network or the project is sound before they put money in, assuming those are bigger named investors, not random people that shows up in podcasts or whatever. So be really careful, look at those, if other channels under other people talking about it, or if you look at the I don't know, other like Decrypt or whatever news you are looking at for crypto, those news outlet, pay attention to the news around these coins. For Bitcoin Cash here, like I shared, is not very good if the trend continues. Only if it's going to come back up above the green level, that may be a sign of it stabilizing. As of now, it's still a bit pessimistic. So, big picture view, back to like sign of weakness, there's a chance for it to rebound. However, the resistance over here, there's double resistance, depending on how quickly it rebounds. The white line over here is the top edge of the long-term playground zone. So, like many other altcoins that I share, or even Bitcoin, there's a long-term cycle that I observe as well, or track, that most of the time the price ends up trading within that area. And as of this moment, this cycle, it may likely be the case as well. If this is really peaked at below the pink line, it will eventually just follow where it comes and dies down from there if no particular positive news comes out for Bitcoin Cash. You're welcome, rock and roll. So, having said that, even a rebound is possible and eventually comes down to accumulation. If really there are good news coming for Bitcoin Cash, that's when an upthrust would happen. That's why there's still a question mark over here that maybe there's a 10 to 20% chance that it will eventually happen. Maybe some crazy news come out for Bitcoin Cash. That's the scenario where a breakout would happen, challenging the green level. More than that, like 70, oh no, 80 to 90%, maybe it's going to come down for an accumulation cycle. So let's borrow this PS over here. That's preliminary support, not PlayStation. So 80 to 90% that it may come down for another accumulation. So if you are doing swing trading, you may be still able to make some profit, but it's going to be more difficult. You see these lower lows as well. It's two accumulation cycle, but one having the dip lower than the other. Not that it has gone back to the bottom of the long-term playground zone. It isn't that bad yet. It's just that this downward trend is a bit worrying for me. If we continue to track it all the way to 2007, we'll see when the next distribution cycle eventually happens, if this one is really ending, because the previous two were pretty short-lived as well. If it follows the same, if another one happens and it comes to stop at around the yellow key level of 530, it's pretty much, I would say, I can even take it off the list of my sessions and cover another coin that people are interested in. So, big picture set, let's look at the daily view. So, here an LPSY happened already. I can take away the question mark. Sign of weakness definitely has happened. Actually, both has happened. So I've shared many times, daily time frame, things can happen very quickly. Even I put in 3 or 4 tags ahead, things can happen more, or more stages can happen than the tags I put in. So currently, the UTAD happening at this point is less likely, because even if it comes up, there 1, 2 resistance, 3 resistance, 4 resistance before it can go past the top light blue key level. So even if it's going to happen, it will take a longer path beyond there. Why? Because the bottom edge of this box, this upward channel that started since April or late March, now becomes the resistance. So even if the price comes up, unless the news that's positive for Bitcoin Cash is as crazy as CRO, otherwise it's not easy for the price to return to this upward channel, and it's going to edge along at best the bottom edge of this being resistance, reaching this point. That's going to be in mid-November, around that time period, if it really comes up. Just that if it, like I said in the beginning, looking at the weekly chart, that the likelihood of it rebounding a little and then coming back down is higher. That means it may have a little bit of rebound and then eventually come to test the orange. Before the orange, there's this green intermediate level that previously the trading found support or found resistance, so that's around 485. The key level is 450, the orange one, but before that 485 may provide some intermediate support, and that means it may bounce one more time before it eventually comes to the orange. So I saw another message, so it needs to hold on I don't know what the question mark between the daily, the THE and the daily is, if not bad news, so it needs to hold on. So let's say it stays above this yellow key level. There is a chance that it trades sideways for a little longer. If it doesn't have to be bad news, just that there are more attractive altcoins that people are willing to put their money into. They can sell at this level and just put their money elsewhere, so the price can still come down. So whether or not it's going to stay here or not isn't a determining factor, because Bitcoin Cash by itself can't hold people unless, like I said, if it's really good news come out, it can hold people. Or like you ask, if it's really bad news, it can gather people to sell. So it depends which way it goes, and depending on whether you're bullish or bearish, it can be good news for you as well, even if it goes down. So here, I just want to quickly check the Bollinger Band Keltner squeeze, because earlier there was a little bit of squeeze. Let me switch this off. That was a squeeze right there just last week, and then the price came down. So the squeeze has been happening for a while already, so it's probably since the beginning of the month right there, August 5th, that the squeeze has officially resumed. It only stopped for a very short period, for a few days. The squeeze started July 3rd, and then when the pressure eventually released, that gave us the peak back in end of July, and then it came down just to go up a little bit further, but then the squeeze continues, and now it's squeezing the price towards the downside. This may not be over yet, while the price is edging towards this downward trend, so be careful that more is to come. So combining all the indicators and Wyckoff, hopefully I have showed you what I can see from the charts, and thanks for your question and joining the session. That's all for today. See you tomorrow.